Pampas grass is really pretty to press. It's got kind of a creamy yellow, whispery feather, silky sheen to it, and it adds something different in arrangements. It's the middle of October, and this particular plant is right at its peak for pressing. I don't like to let it get any more than this, or some of the silvery compact texture goes away. So this is the perfect time to press it. And what I do for Pampas grass is, here's a plume off of it, is I pull this back and then I will take the pieces and then spread them out and then press them like that. Then you can use the larger parts, or again you can, for arrangements, you can use smaller pieces, even down to very fine ones for mini arrangements. So for something different, you can give Pampas grass a try. This is white. They always also make a pinkish variety, which I had once upon a time, but I don't like that for pressing as much. It kind of looked dirty. I don't know how to explain it. But this white is, at least in my opinion, much prettier. And the plant that I've got that I showed you a minute ago is a I don't know if they call it a dwarf, but it's not as large as the big huge ones. It's not nearly as big. And then the parts that I have left, because I don't usually need to press this whole thing, is I will dry upside down, and then they can be used in dried arrangements. So don't just throw the rest away. Go ahead and hang it upside down and dry it. In one of the other In the Garden videos, where I talked about lady's mantle and how there was the regular lady's mantle and then the dwarf lady's mantle, I mentioned that I had an alpine lady's mantle once upon a time, and that if I ever found one again, I'd snap it up. Well, I did some research and I did find it, and I did put it back in the garden, and here it is right here. And I just want to show you these the leaves. They're small arrangements. Look at how beautiful. They have these nice reddish stems, and then around the edge of the leaves, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a kind of a burgundy-ish color, and they're just stellar. I hope it makes it through the winter. I'm gonna have to do something to protect it. I actually bought 2 of these plants, and I put one here with this gravelly soil, and then I put the other one in more of a dirt bed, and the one in the dirt bed didn't make it. So these definitely like to run on gravel, and they will slowly creep out. It started out just being a small little piece over there, and now it's kind of moved along. So this is alpine lady's mantle. It will get a really tiny little flower as it matures, but I press it for the leaves. Something else that's kind of a mainstay in arrangements that I just love are ferns. And this is a real big clump here. And there's actually 2 kinds. In the front is what you see here. And then behind it, that you can't really see, is more of a kind of, I call it a curly fern. And I brought a frond over so I can show you the difference. Let's see how the I don't know if you can tell in the video, but these leaves are kind of wavy. It's mid-October right now, so these are looking really spent. And the later in the season they start getting these spores. And so I prefer to pick ferns early in the season before the spores develop. But I was remiss in doing this video at the beginning of the season, and so I wanted to do it before winter hits. Here's another kind of fern. I went around and picked some of the ones from the garden. Here's another kind. And then this is more of like a Boston fern. And then this is they call a painted fern. It gets kind of silvery. Again, it's towards the end of the season, so its color isn't very vivid as far as the silvery aspect. But it gets kind of a reddish stem with silvery foliage, especially the younger foliage. And then this one gets long. It's kind of long and narrow. It's pretty thick as far as compared to some of the other ferns. But it presses really well. Works good in arrangements. So don't forget ferns. They make a wonderful background foliage, or just, a mainstay in a picture. Here's a couple more ferns. This is an asparagus fern, and they grow, see how they kind of grow off this stem here and then radiate out. What's interesting about them is that they have a black stem, and then the edges of the leaves have a really kind of a nice pattern to them. And then another one, I don't know what this kind's called, but it's very, very frilly. And see how wispy those pieces are? They're really nice. I like those too. So I have quite a few different kinds of ferns at this yard. This is kind of fun. I kind of call it the miniature fuchsia. It has these tiny pink flowers. Good for many arrangements. And the leaves are really nice too if you need something smaller. Just press a whole cluster. And then you can use the cluster, or for mini arrangement you can use these little tiny pieces. I've never really seen one of these before anywhere else. Bought it as a 4-inch pot probably 15-20 years ago, and it's made it through the winters. Another leaf that I like to press is the mum leaves. These are, October blooming plants. You can see they're just starting to bloom now. You can try pressing the flowers. I don't usually worry about the flowers because they're pretty thick and there's a lot of other things that I use instead. But what I really like are the leaves. They hold their color well. I really like to use them in arrangements. They're easy to press. You've got different sizes. And you can use them in their whole, or when you're making mini arrangements, you can drill down and use different sections. Yeah, I like to use that. Or smaller yet. So these are mum leaves. This is a geranium that's got some exciting leaves on it. The flowers aren't quite as spectacular as some, but the leaves are beautiful. The more mature leaves are not quite as colorful as the younger leaves. But what I'll do is I will pick them, and then I will take the stem off the back and press them flat. Look how beautiful. And they'll, if you dry them quick, as in rotate them, you know, into the different books a couple of times so that they can maintain their color, they will make it through. I've also tried microwave with them. I can't remember. I was experimenting a little while back with the microwave, the iron, and the traditional pressing. And if memory serves me well, the traditional pressing works the best, but under the right circumstances, they will make it through, and they're worth it when they do. So give your exciting leaf geraniums a try. The Dusty Miller leaves are really nice in pressed flower arrangements, especially if you want something with a silvery white color. And they also have a nice texture to them. And I'm not sure how to describe it. Kind of velvety. And the higher up on the bush, the whiter the foliage. So these top sections are going to be the whitest. You've got smaller pieces and then bigger pieces. So give the Dusty Miller or some of the silvery foliages a try. In talking about the silver foliaged plants, we looked at the Dusty Miller, and this is an artemisia, and it also has silvery colored leaves, which I really like. Very feathery looking. Nice to use in pressed arrangements. They wilt pretty fast once you pick them, so once you take them off the bush, you want to get to your pressing station in a fairly reasonable amount of time if you want them open and not starting to get limp. And they kind of have a nice open feel, really good for arrangements. The back side is actually lighter and whiter, more silvery than the front, so I'll often use the back side a lot more than I'll use the front. Easy to press, holds their color well. Probably because there's not a whole lot of color, but it maintains it for a long time. Ivy leaves also press pretty good, hold their color fairly well. And for those, I will oftentimes leave the stem on because it doesn't add any bulk to the underside of the flower. And they come in different shades. Sometimes they're variegated. Of course, this would be a larger leaf. And you can drill down to smaller sizes. And here's a really and if you want to do something a little more interesting, you can pick the tip. This is a lace leaf maple. It doesn't look quite as fresh as it did in the spring, but what I really like about them is especially the tips. That when they're young, as in the spring when they come out, and then at this point you can see how it's got the different shading in there. How pretty that is. It's got the kind of the lime green with that reddish tinge on the outside.